Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition, the final edition for the legislative session of Labor Live at 12:05. I'm your host, Alex Jorgensen, Communications Director here at the Alaska AFL-CIO, and joined by always the lovely Kim Hayes, our Political Director. Kim, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Alex. Happy to be here.
What has been a sigh of relief in our office to finally be done with the legislative session. It's been a lot of work, but I'm sure we're all wondering what got across the finish line, what didn't, what loose ends are we still trying to tie up? So, Kim, what are some of the maybe kind of high-level things that passed the legislature this year?
Yeah, and one note, Alex, is the legislature adjourned one day earlier than they had to. So
I've never seen it.
They must be feeling pretty good getting home. That was not an easy task. And the reason they were able to do that is a lot of teamwork, both in the majorities and the minorities, right, to get out a day early. But yeah, there's a lot of important legislation, at least as far as what the labor movement was following, that made it across the finish line that I wanted to highlight. First of all, this is not just important to the labor movement, but the operating budget, the mental health budget, the capital budget, the supplemental budgets, all the budgets, the way we pay for state services, all of those passed. They included our union contracts. So all of the folks that were in negotiations this year and got their terms, their contracts were funded, which was really important to us and important to the people that serve us in our state. And so they were able to get that across the finish line. Important for everybody, important for a functioning state. But in our realm, in the labor movement, there were a couple of bills we were really interested in see passing this year, and they did. The first one is a payday loan reform bill. It was Senate Bill 39. And this is one of those bills that went after those predatory payday loan places. We see them all around. Their APRs are in the 100%. They can go all the way up to 700%. And this was a bill capping the APR at 36%, which is still pretty high, but reasonable, a compromise. That's going to hurt. That's going to help working families, people who are low income, people that tend to be targeted by predatory payday lending companies. So that was really nice to see.
And if I remember correctly, a vast majority of those companies that provide that kind of low, financial payday service, they're all outside companies. In fact, I think someone, it was Senator Dunbar on the program a couple of weeks ago said roughly, $3.7 million in payments are going outside of Alaska to pay off these loans. So it's not like even the companies operating here are actually the one providing the service, right?
Accurate. So that's good for everybody. That's a good, good governance kind of bill. We really appreciate both Rep. Eischeid's work and Senator Dunbar's work on those reforms. Additionally, there was a bill, HB 75, that our seafarer union brought to our attention. Really important. So those workers, the seafarers, have to go out of state to get training. And sometimes they can be gone for quite a long time, but these are Alaska residents. They were not eligible to maintain their PFD eligibility. So we passed a bill this year, and they worked really hard on it to allow them to remain eligible for their PFD just because they go out of state for training. So that was a win for those workers.
Huge win.
Seems like a small thing, but it's really important for those members, or for any of our unions who have out-of-state training facilities that make them stay out of state for an extended period of time. So those were some of the important things we watched this year that passed. Other things passed, of course, Women's History Month, Secure Rural Schools Act, things like that. But those were kind of the high-level bills that we were watching that passed.
So we got the success stories, but obviously with every legislative session, there's always a list of bills that I know we have been advocating for, hoping would be probably cross the finish line, but they just didn't quite have enough gas to make it all the way. So what are some of the bills that we were watching that didn't quite make it this year?
Sure. And one thing important for people watching is that doesn't mean that these bills are dead. The Alaska legislative sessions are 2 years. So any bill that didn't pass this year is alive next year, for better or worse. And so we know that bills that didn't make it across the finish line, we're just going to work on them again next year. And some of them are poised for passage, right? There are hundreds of bills in both bodies. So obviously not everything is going to make it across the finish line. So one of the bills that we're excited about hasn't yet made it across the finish line is our pension bill, our return to a defined benefit pension for public service. That one made it all the way through the House. That's House Bill 78. And now it's sitting in Senate Labor and Commerce, ready to go full force next year. We're going to be contacting you to testify on that bill as well. So that one didn't make it across the finish line, but we knew that, and we're ready for next year in January to push that through the Senate. Additionally, you probably saw this in news, but we are really involved in elections reform, making it easier for people to vote, making our voter rolls more accurate and up to date, those kinds of things. There were 2 bills that were so close at the end. Senate Bill 64, which was kind of a catch-all bill that had ballot curing in it, removal of the kind of useless witness signature that's actually just been disenfranchising voters in rural Alaska. And it had some cleanup language for the voter rolls as well. That one was unable to make it. It's sitting in House Finance, so it's almost there, but it seems like some more tweaks might have to happen to get that one across the finish line.
Right.
Same thing, House Bill 16 was to establish some common sense campaign finance contribution limits. Right now, if you're an individual, there is no limit on how much money you can give to a candidate, which seems like a bad idea. We've seen what happens with Citizens United and other out of control policies. That one didn't make it across the finish line, but we expect to push that one again next year.
Hope for next year.
Hope for next year. And then, of course, we know as a state, we need revenue. We really need revenue. Unfortunately, the only bill that made it across the finish line that would generate some revenue is what they're calling the Amazon and Netflix tax. It's not a tax on you as a user of Amazon and Netflix. It's just reapportioning where their money would go tax-wise. It wouldn't go to where they exist, where their base is. Some of that money would come to Alaska. That one did make it across the finish line. We await the governor's decision on that, but that was the only revenue measure that made it across the finish line this year.
Yeah, it feels like we've been talking about revenue measures for the last decade, and we always get so close, and yet we remain so far away.
Right.
So maybe that the elusive revenue package that finally brings everyone together, that everyone can vote for, maybe that's next session. But I'm not gonna stake.
Hold your breath, Jorgensen. Yep.
So we got bills passed. Bills that didn't pass, but I know there's kind of one bill in particular that huge accomplishment, pretty historic veto override, but there kind of might still be a little bit of uncertainty. So could you tell us what happened in the end with education funding?
Sure. I know a lot of our viewers have been watching us to talk about education specifically. It's a crisis in our state. So in the news of good news, bad news, good news, bad news, the legislature first, they passed House Bill 57. That was a permanent increase to the base student allocation of $700. It was a great victory. The governor, as expected, waited until the last day that he could, and he vetoed that bill. And the next morning, the legislature got together and overrode his veto, which has not happened since 2002. Very historic. 46-14. They only needed 40. They got 46. Great victory. Great. The legislation is now, headed to be in our statutes. There is a problem. That's not a funding bill. That's just law.
Right.
The funding for that BSA is in the budget. The budget is headed to the governor, as I discussed. He gets 20 days minus Sundays once he receives the budget to make vetoes. And on a budget, he's allowed to go through the budget and pick and choose what he vetoes. It's not he doesn't have to just say all or nothing. He has made comments that he will be vetoing some amount of the education funding. We don't know. So we passed a bill. We hope it doesn't become an unfunded mandate. That would be devastating to our school district. So that's one of the loose ends that we're all waiting to see what happens. We expect something to happen in mid-June. All of the bills that have passed are subject to the governor's veto, of course. So we are waiting on all of those bills to see what the governor attempts to do. He can choose to sign it. He can choose to let it become law by doing nothing, or he can choose to veto these things. So, nothing's final yet, but we are waiting on that.
And if the governor does end up vetoing, which kind of seems, I would maybe say maybe more likely than not, but like you said, we really don't know. The legislature does have a few options. Either the governor himself can call them into special session for an override. Probably very unlikely. I don't know why he would do that.
He probably wouldn't like that.
The legislature could call themselves into a special session to take an override vote on this bill. Is that so? I guess those are kind of the things we have to wait for to see, is that going to happen? And that's probably something that, if that comes, our organization will probably be involved in advocating to come back in, because our school districts can't wait till January.
Can't wait. Because to your point, Alex, they could choose to vote to call themselves back in. It would require them going to Juneau. There's a cost with that, but of course, education needs this money. It is much more likely, as of May 22nd today, because things can change, that they're going to have to wait till January to consider the override. School will already have been in for half the year, right? So it would be devastating. But there's 60 of them that have to figure out that they want to get into a session together and to deal with this. So we'll see what happens when the vetoes come out on the budget and what the sense of the legislature is to tackle that.
Yeah, and rest assured, folks from home, we will be watching.
That's
Yeah,
right.
the legislature ends. The legislature ended this week, but we're still going to be actively following this issue. And I just wanted to take a moment to hopefully, maybe, well, obviously for you, Kim, you're a two-time host or a two-time special guest this year on Labor Live, and just want to thank everyone else that's come on this program to talk about a lot of the important issues that are impacting Alaska's working families. It's been great to restart this Labor Live at 12:05 program to kind of track what's happening in Juneau. Going forward, these probably won't be every week, but we're still going to try to have some periodically throughout the summer covering maybe different aspects of labor history in Alaska or other important values that are important to Alaska's working families. So this isn't a goodbye to the Labor Live at 12:05 program for the summer, but it is a temporary pause as we kind of reformat this program for the off legislative season. So Kim, as always, thanks so much for coming on and giving us a great overview and wrap up of what happened in the legislative session.
Thank you, Alex. And I appreciate everybody who's stuck around and watched our program week by week.
Well, that is it for the final episode for the legislative session of Labor Live at 12:05. Catch us, I guess, stay tuned for future announcements of when new episodes will be happening. So thanks so much for sticking with us. Have a good one.